to Kickoff, baby. Come on, Troop Brinson.
Yes, it's the countdown to Kickoff with Troop and Smooch and special guest Coach Hayes.
How's it going, guys?
Hayes, Coach Hayes. How you doing, brother?
Doing great. It's great to see you guys tonight. Looking forward to talking some ball, but definitely the fellowship with my guys. I appreciate you.
Amen.
Yeah, we could think of nothing better than to bring Coach Hayes on. It's been a good season for the Dawgs that they finished up the regular season 10-2. And it's been a good season for all of us too. And so we wanted to kind of touch base again. And as we start the postseason, Georgia and Texas for the second time, this time for the SEC championship, and in a neutral site, place we're pretty familiar with, at the Benz in Atlanta. And Texas. So Texas, only one loss there right now. I think number 2, is that where they are, guys?
Correct.
Yep.
And Georgia's got a 5th seed or 5th ranking, number 7 seed. But those things are going to change. We really wanted to bring this to you after, me and Smooch did the podcast from the woods a couple days ago, and we didn't get enough time to talk about Texas and Georgia. So that's what we're going to do tonight.
Beautiful. It would be amazing if Georgia goes and takes care of business, like I think they will, Coach, this Saturday. They will be – I can't remember the last time a team beat the number 1 and the number 2 team in the same year, and that could very well happen.
Yeah, and the one thing that I think is that we've got to figure out a way to make sure that there's this sense of sobering for them, because right now they're living on such a high cloud with such, I think, false pretenses with the way that their season is gone. And I know a lot of them are very high on what they're doing this year, and they're talking about first year in the SEC, and here we are with the SEC championship. We need to humble those Longhorns really quick with what we've got to do, and it starts with us having 4 quarters of football, and that's something we get to, and we'll talk about here soon. But we can't start off slow. We've got to get out there. I think we humble them very quickly by doing that. But that's the thing about it. We've got not only humble the team, but humble that fan base, because they are right now feeling it.
Amen. They are due for a humbling. I remember this. That's Texas, by the way, mocking Georgia at a ball. What was that, 2018?
Yeah, it was against Baylor. Let's see, not against Baylor, against Texas in the Sugar Bowl, 2018.
Yeah, 2018. And be careful what you wish for. Here we are, Troop Brinson. It is I look at momentum right now. I look at a Texas team that doesn't even know who its starting quarterback is right now. And I look at a Georgia team who has suddenly found a starting quarterback.
Well, Carson Beck's definitely been the starting quarterback all season, but he's playing at a better more consistency the last 3 games. I think before we talk about Beck, and it definitely has a lot to do with Beck, the question on most Dawg fans and just sports fans' minds are, how much different is what we're going to see Saturday night different from what Georgia took to Austin in that game? Because that game was a game dominated by Georgia's defense. Whatever, you can slice it up any way you want. Georgia got a lot of short field, a lot of easy scoring opportunities. Now, not to say they couldn't have scored anyway. They didn't have to, because his defense was just dominant. And looking at Beck's numbers in that Texas game, he was 23 of 41 for only 175 yards. That's like a 4.3 average. He had 3 picks. So he was not at his best at all. And so I don't know if a lot of people are trying to figure out how that's going to translate and what they expect to see based on what that game was. And I think is an opportunity. It might be a much different game. I expect both these quarterbacks to play better, honestly, or both the team's quarterbacks. But Georgia's offense has the opportunity to play much better than they did, and they just dominated. It felt like it was 23-0 at one point. And so I think it could be much different, but you said it. Beck is the last 3 games, Smoot, he's been a different quarterback.
Yeah, I look at this game and I think that if you say your quarterback's going to throw 3 interceptions and you're going to dominate a game, that's almost unheard of. And then you look at that game, a Texas fan will say, oh, it was short fields. Well, who gave them the short fields? They didn't magically fall out of the sky. They earned those short fields. But when the officiating went off the rails, Georgia needed a long drive, and they pulled one out and drove the ball right down their throats and stuck it in the end zone and put that game away. So looking at it, I think if Georgia didn't play its A game in there and dominated, that should give you optimism. But of course, anything can happen, Coach.
Yeah, and the dynamics of that too comes behind a good running game. Trevor Etienne had his best game of the year, and he's not even playing this coming Saturday. So you're going to be looking at a different dynamic at running back as well. But with Carson Beck, when you do have short fields, you take advantage of them, which we did. I don't see that being the same situation, and I think that's why you're going to see the role change a little bit. We're going to have to see more of those driving the field deals like we saw in the Texas game when we went up 30-15, where we drove the length of the field, which kind of got started off with that long throw curl route to Arian Smith, where a lot of people who are down on him right now. But it comes down to me defensively. I think we're going to probably look at some different kind of scheme concepts, but we fit very well lock and key to them.
Yes.
What the thing that Texas is going to look at doing, I know now, is they're going to look to get the ball out quicker, very similar to how Ole Miss did. And so, if we're going to still get to the football or play solid defense, we're going to have to tackle well. We're going to have to stay in space with the receivers if they are going to be trying to get it out quick and be able to lock those guys down. And we've got to get off the field on third down. That's going to be one of the bigger issues that I've seen that's driving me nuts now, is we're staying on the field on 3rd and 6, 3rd and 5, 3rd and 7s. And, we got to get off the field on third down. As a defensive coordinator, that's one of the biggest things I always had was pride in my guys knowing what down it was. And when they got the stop, they always threw the hand up in the air that it was 4th down, because I wanted them to take pride in seeing that referee put his hand, put the bare fist up in the air for 4th down. And so that's a big key too as well. But, the dynamics offensively is going to be Beck, who is really shining right now. He's come into his own and got into a rhythm, and it's a perfect time for him to be there. And I think we finally have found some, solidification with Monroe Freeling at that left tackle. I feel like for the last 3 ball games, we've also seen pretty stellar offensive line play as well. So, a lot of good things going on with what we are going to be seeing going into the championship this weekend.
And just to throw those numbers out there, these are Beck's numbers for the past 3 games. Smooch, you have those? You can pull them up and throw them.
Yeah. Carson Beck, last 3 games. This is since the Ole Miss loss, which most people will say felt like a low point in the season. It was the level of frustration, and there was just never, even in the Bama game, there was this glimmer of hope. And oh my gosh! And you even look at what they did to come back, and you tried to wrap your arms around that. But the Ole Miss game was so frustrating. And we said on this show, games like this, you either go one of 2 directions. This is either the foundation that you build on from here. You look back to that moment and said, after that game, we told the Instagram model to lay off. We're going to get to work here. Or we just retreated into ourselves and became worse. And Beck, since the Ole Miss game, averaging 313 yards passing per game. He has 12 touchdowns and 0 turnovers, 11 passing, 1 rushing, Coach.
Nice. And that's what you got to see. When a good football team, I always say, will increase and get better as the year goes on. And honestly, we're spoiled, guys, because we watched such stellar play in the 2 years that we won the national championship, and even really last year too, honestly, even though we were watching trial by fire defensively with certain things going on. I mean, I seem at times we've done that this year. My biggest concern, is to continue that continuity that we've shown over the last 3 to 4 ball games and continue that into the Texas game. If we see that, I think we see the play that we've been wanting to anticipate Georgia playing all year long, for the defense to show up, tackle well, play sound football, get off the field on third downs, and for our offense to drive the football without turning the ball over, regardless of whether we've got a short field or whether we've got to drive the length of the field. And we take some of those good things that are happening for us and continue that process going into Saturday.
Well, I'll say something that on that first game, Georgia's defensive front was really good. Only gave up 29 yards total rushing. So, I mean, you can't run the ball against Georgia. And we've heard it talked about this week. Texas loves the screen game, the quick screen. They do that a lot, and Georgia's speed mitigates that to some extent. And they tackled well. They were very prepared. It looked like against Texas last time they were very, very prepared for what Texas wanted to do, and that seemed to cause their quarterbacks to hold the ball longer, which was a recipe for disaster for them in their home stadium, which is still, people remember, that was their home stadium. And so, I mean, they had everything in their corner, but Georgia just played a better game. I will say that I expect them to be able to run the ball a little bit better. They're going to try to. Georgia likely won't have Kristen Miller. He had a sensational game against Texas last time. And plus, just this past game against Texas A&M, Wisner had 186 yards rushing on 33 carries. 33 carries, that's 5.6 average. So they were committed to the run against Texas A&M, and I got a feeling they're gonna. So if they can stay in this game and keep it close, they're gonna really try to run the ball and take advantages of things. You got to expect that they're going to come out. Even I'm glad that they had a game Saturday, because they would overhaul some aspects of how they played Georgia the first time. I don't think they have enough time to do that. So you'll see a lot of the same tendencies, but you got to expect they're going to pull some things out to show Kirby that he's not expecting.
Yeah, and, they've got some dings, too. Bond has been slowed. They've got some of their playmaker. I think you will see a return to more of a basic game, but that always – you keep saying this, Troop, styles make fights. And what Texas is going to want to do really plays into Georgia's hand. I thought you saw Georgia Tech coaching really, the judo and jiu-jitsu, you use your opponent's momentum against them. You let them flash aggression, and you take that aggression and you turn it into your strength. And that happened to Georgia time and time again against Tech. Texas is not that. They're a bully ball team too. And when it comes down to bully and when it comes down to trenches and comes down to man on man, I'll take the Dogs over anybody. Texas found it out the first time, and I don't think they're going to alter that aspect of trying to out-physical Georgia. Again, I just don't think they can, Coach.
And, that's the difference when you look. That's the reason why I talk about the lock and key against Texas versus a completely different key against Georgia Tech. We fit Texas very well because Kevin Wisner and both Jaden Blue, they're running backs. And on top of that, too, I think they do have a lineman that's hurt. I think they've got one that's dealing with a nagging injury, and their line is solid. I would almost classify them being in the top 5 lines this year in the nation. And, when you're dealing, just like we've dealt with the injury bug with that kind of stuff, when you have a guy that all of a sudden goes down and you're having to rotate guys around, that can create dilemmas. But when it comes down to it, whatever they decide to do, I don't think when you're at this point in time in the season, I don't think this is the time where you're trying to, you might throw a wrinkle in there, maybe with Arch Manning. I doubt you do it with Ewers, but I don't think Georgia Tech really gave them something that made them feel like, what, we need to go out here and work for 30 minutes on trying to learn how to run QB power with misdirection off jet, because that's what, Buster Faulkner makes a living at. You've got to jet back every play, and you've got to be accountable almost like a triple option. I don't think that happens. I think they probably try to take more advantage, like you were just talking about, where if you think about like Ole Miss, for example, after we had such a great game against Texas, the reason why is because they were holding the ball so long. We were able to get to them. And you look at Ole Miss got the ball out quick. Yeah. They were throwing quick slants. They were throwing those quick hitches. It was 1, 2, 3 throw. And it didn't allow us to get there. So to me, if Texas wants to have any success and not see a repeat from our defensive side of the ball getting to him, they're going to have to work on getting the ball out quicker. And that means that you're going to have to beat those man-on-man situations or throw balls in very small windows in zone. So, that's going to be their key, I think, to change things up, because defensively you feel pretty good if you've been practicing this week and knowing, the different tendencies that you can do against Texas.
Yeah, I think, I really feel like that to some extent too. And I also feel that Georgia expects to be here. Texas can say whatever. Their fans can say whatever. They haven't been into an SEC championship before. Georgia expects to play in this game. Georgia has played in this game. And you just wonder if that makes a difference if Georgia is the standard. And they haven't had a great year for lots of reasons, the schedule being one of them, and some inconsistencies there. A lot of teams have room to be inconsistent because they don't play the same schedule and they get away with it. Well, Georgia got punished when they didn't play well. And but I think that this could be a game where Georgia kind of could flex in this game a little bit and said, no, this is our game. This is our house. And you had your chance to beat us in your house. Now you come in to where we're very comfortable playing. We have expectations set. And so if it is the point that just styles make the fight and you can't get past that, there's only so much you can do to get around that, then that would heavily favor the Georgia Bulldogs. And that gets me even more excited.
Absolutely. I think that for me, the question comes down to a very simple observation, a very simple question, and it's back to Carson Beck. Is what we're seeing from Carson Beck right now, is that Carson Beck? Has he turned a corner? Has he Has he reached a point at which he made some tough decisions, some tough self-realizations, and is now on the ascension? Or is this just a blip in the radar, and we're looking at another 3-interception game? This game answers so much. It is not only just important for the Dawgs and getting that bye week, it is important for the trajectory of Carson's career, his legacy at Georgia. If he goes out there and lays the lumber to Texas, there's not a single game before that can besmirch anything he's done at that point and in his career, because he will have weathered the storm and come out victorious on the other side and be ready to, they would be a favorite at that point to win the whole darn thing, Coach.
They would be. And that also comes collectively with their receivers going out there and balling out too. They've got to do those things to help give Carson Beck that trust, and that, I think you look at maybe including in some people that you haven't even seen, maybe look at Nitro a little bit more, maybe Sokovia in the quick screen game. Don't throw Arian Smith the ball right out of the gate. Leave him.
Do not.
Leave him, I think, if I'm not mistaken, you actually mentioned that the other day when I was watching the pod. Give it to him on the reverse. But, they're going to be expecting the reverse. So that's where you're going to have your little wrench in the chain, and have a boot off of that. Look like you're going to run the reverse and boot, have a pass play out of that. So add a wrinkle to something that they've already been preparing for all week long, the 3 or 4 different types of reverses that we like to run with him. But, I want to see London Humphreys get more involved. It was good to see him catch a few balls. And then, of course, what I noticed in our game that I really like is now we're adding Cash Jones and Nate Frazier into the 5-man progression of passing the football. And I tell you right now, that is a great outlet to have when you got teams that are in man-to-man and you got a running back that can outmaneuver a linebacker. I mean, he did such great things. The angle route that he caught, the out route for the first down, that was huge in one of the overtime plays. And, of course, the touchdown he caught for the second overtime to tie Georgia Tech back up. I mean, those were crucial, and that was all from the backfield. So you complement that with, Dominic Lovett obviously continuing to – he's kind of a Jekyll and Hyde too, is he not? I find that he plays well at times, and then all of a sudden he'll turn around and he just goes into complete. I don't know what his deal is. It's like it makes you scratch your head. But that's the thing about it. The way we talk about Carson Beck, I think the receivers also have to do that. When they get a target, they've got to catch it. When they get the opportunity to make a play, you've got to be there. And I get it. It happens. You're going to have drops. You're going to have situations where defenses make good plays and get in the hip and get phase and knock balls down. That happens, but it comes down to it. You're winning more of those 50-50s. You're beating your guy off the ball and catching the slant. You're, not getting held up at the line of scrimmage and slowing your momentum down so you can catch that post route for the explosive touchdown. Those things have got to take place. But I'm going to tell you this, to answer your question, I think Carson Beck is in that zone now. It seems to me ever since he made that run against Tennessee, something has clicked now for him that when he knows he doesn't want to throw it, he pulls the daggum ball down and goes. And that's something that's nice too. He adds his feet to the running game. And if you'll notice, that's the reason why I think we've seen a little more succession and why we've seen drives extended, is because now he's deciding, instead of just running sort of fragilely, he knows when he pulls it down, he is gone, and he's going to try his best to get that first down. So he's helping extend drives with his feet now too. And that's critical when you're trying to drive the football against a good football team, and you're wanting to keep your offense out on the field when you've got a quarterback that can do that. But he is making throws that we've been wanting him to make all year long, and it's really been nice to see him structure those, and for Coach Bobo to call up some good plays. I've really had a chance, breaking down stuff over the last 3 weeks. I think Coach Bobo's been calling great offensive game plans and doing really well. So, that's the thing about it. I agree. There's a big barometer for this game, but I do think and agree with Troop that we've got to go out there and prove our business to these guys, because they've had their chance. Now it's in our backyard, and we need to take care of business here.
Beautiful.
Love it.
I think, let me say, Troop, I was going to say a couple of things on what Coach just said. I think if Georgia goes on and has great success this year, the QB run against Tennessee where he lays the shoulder down, that's the turning point of the season, period. I think is at that point. I think that for the first time, I saw James Cook type of passing to the wheel routes, the angle routes. That has opened up so many things. The touchdown to Cash Jones, that looked like Stetson to James Cook against Michigan. It looked just like it. Great thing to see. And in the receivers, I want Florida State Dylan Bell, the guy that caught those 2 back shoulder fades with a guy draped all over him. I want to see a receiver do that for Carson and bring that level of confidence even up higher, Troop.
All good stuff. Let's move on and I guess talk about what we think are the keys to the game. We've been touching on some of these things, but I'm going to throw it right back to, I'm going to throw it to Coach first, and give me a couple of keys to this game and what it would take to win the SEC championship Saturday.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and say this because I know there's 50-50 on what some people play. Some people want to live in the past and play and say, well, we beat them before, we should beat them again. As a coach, taking this week and probably the prior week too, you don't treat this like the same game. You have to go in with the mindset that you have not played Texas. You know what their tendencies are, and obviously you know what they have the ability to do. And you sit there and think about, well, what are their capabilities when they are hot? What are their capabilities? They want to run behind Wisner. They want to run behind Jaden Blue. They don't want to put Ewers in a situation where he's having to play from behind. So they're going to try to stay in front of the chain. So I think they're going to try to establish a good running game, which means that defensively we've got to show up and tackle. We've got to show up and fit gaps and get after ass and tackle. We cannot miss tackles. We cannot be out of line. And, I think that's what they're going to try to do. They're going to try to misalign us. They're going to try to get us out of place. And it's going to really be that cat and mouse game of how many times we call something into what they're wanting to do and we do it right and execute it. And when we do get a blitz, we get home. That's the biggest key. It drives me nuts when we draw up a perfect blitz. We get through gap without being touched, unharassed, and we miss the tackle on the back. Yeah, exactly. So that's what's frustrating to me when I see those kind of plays. So execution at the highest level, we got to tackle well in open field. But it comes down to me, it's going to be more in our secondary issues because with Kristen Miller being hurt, and I do know we still have a pretty strong nucleus of defensive linemen, Warren Brinson, TID. I know they're going to be bringing in the John Jarrett's, and we even got to see Nnamdi Aboko a little bit at that, that zero technique a little bit. I think they've got enough there with Gabe Harris and what Damon Wilson is doing, and of course, McHale. And with our linebacker play, it's nice to see Smile Munden being back. It's nice to be able to see Warren Brinson being healthy. Of course, Dan Jackson and what he's done. But, all around, I think we've got finally a solid core of guys that should go out and execute. And I see us having good things happen by covering their guys because they're going to try to get the ball out quick. We got to be able to cover for those windows. And probably not going to see the same defensive play that we saw. We're not going to see 7 sacks, I think is what we had. But I do think if we, hold, execute, tackle well, and cover and stay in those windows and kind of frustrate their quarterbacks in completion ratios, and we, like I said, get after their running game, we should see a very successful night. So don't expect the same type of play. Don't expect us to be getting home a lot. If we do get home, great. I say we could get home maybe half what we did last time. But still, though, I think we got some good things coming. But it comes down to that defensively against their offense. Offensively, I think it's hard for me to say that we do anything differently. I think it comes down to the fact of, like we talk about, when you execute and you've got that 50-50 ball, you make the freaking catch. When you get targeted, you catch the ball at all cost. Lyman taking care of business. Our pass pro's been so much more efficient over the last few weeks. And, Ernest Green never wished a guy to get hurt, and obviously he's dealing with nagging injuries. But Monroe Freeling going in at that left tackle, to me, has stapled our offensive line. So it comes down to Nate. He's going to have to establish a little bit of a run game. We're going to have to definitely, make them honor that a little bit so that we can throw the football. But, Nate's going to have a good night, and we're going to have to go out there, like I say, and execute with our passing game. And those guys that are targeted are going to have to make those catches. And of course, we got to hold on to the football. Can't turn the ball over.
Yeah. To add to that, I think that a key to this game is going to come down to this: outrush Texas. It doesn't mean the Dogs have to have 200 yards rushing. It means if Texas has 150, we have 170 yards rushing. And it's not that I think the game will be won by a great Georgia rushing attack. I think what it does is Texas is going to have to run to keep the pressure off the quarterback, keep the guys out of the backfield. If you do that, you have made that game so physical. If Georgia outrushes Texas, it is just man football at that point. And no one has the depth to go 4 quarters at that style of play with Georgia. They just don't. Georgia can roll out an entirely different D-line than they, on one series and be just fine. And so outrushing Texas, I think that there's very few if this happens, then they win. I think if they outrush Texas, they win. I think that line right there, because it has so much to do with the mentality and the style, and that's where Georgia wants it. They want to take them out into deep water and drown them. That's how this game, I think, will be won. It might not be as pretty, and it might not be as set early. I think you could see a tie score at half. I think you could see a close game in the third quarter. But I think you should see Georgia pulling away if they hold on to the football, whether it's fumbles or drops. Hold on to the football when it's in your hands.
Right. That seems to be a common thought, is turnovers, and it should be, because Georgia's suffered from that a lot this year. I'll say my keys are, first of all, 11, 13, and 10 on defense. That's, of course, Jalen Walker, Mykel Williams, and Damon Wilson. They had such a great game, and if they can do half of what they did, like Coach said, and disrupting the offense, then Georgia's going to have a good day. And I just don't know if they come out and play like they did with that same intensity, and just they just were not going to be denied. They just weren't. And some of the plays they made on defense, they just weren't going to be. You weren't blocking. You were not going to block Jalen Walker that game. Whatever he had to do, he was getting a hand on the quarterback.
Yep.
And so those three keys, or three players. Also, of course, explosives.
Oh, that's a good one.
A lot of times that tells the tale, the explosives, which team gets those plays and flips the field or puts points on the board. And then I'm going to go back to that same refrain, turnovers. And whichever team wins that turnover battle. Sometimes you get a turnover and it doesn't affect you that much. But if it turns into an explosive play, so to speak, then yeah. And Georgia used that to their advantage against Texas last time, had a lot of short field situations. But Georgia's offense is playing well right now. I really feel good about the way they play. And if they protect Beck, if that offensive line protects Beck, then Georgia can score some points. Which is going to take me right to score predictions. And I'm going to continue talking here since I got the microphone. My score prediction for this game, and it seems like, Smooch, we have a lot of our games, because we're Georgia fans. Nobody's going to argue that. Obviously we predict Georgia to have a close game in the third quarter and pull away in the fourth quarter, mostly because we've seen it so many times. Georgia is that team that they can do that, and they've done it many, many times. I think it's going to be both offenses playing a much better game this time. I really think they're going to play crisper and cleaner. And I see a 35-24 Georgia victory, SEC champions.
35-24. I got you down. It's locked now. 35-24. Go ahead, Coach.
Well, I'm going to say this. If there was one thing about the Georgia Tech game that I really liked, was playing the 8 overtimes made me realize that our guys are relentless and they're resilient and they're battle tested. And that makes me feel like no matter what the score goes to, or what either we're up or they're up, that the game is not over until you take the ball away from us and we can't play anymore. But I do think because of those things, along with how well we are really moving right now, our rhythm seems to be good, our continuity seems to be good. There's, believe it or not, with all that stuff that happened, and I hate to even bring up Julian Humphrey, but when stuff like that happens, you will have kids rally around that kind of stuff, because it makes them realize what's important. And it makes them have that center core of, what is it about us that makes us special, and why are we here? What is our purpose? What is our why? And, when they get into that mentality, and you've got guys searching together, that central core feeling that way, really special things happen on the football field. And it's crazy, because you go out there as a coach and you watch it happen, and it's almost like you're, reading the most poetic poem in the world. You just see things happen in front of you that just go, wow, that just give you that awe factor. So, with what we've had happen to us over the last month, really, and because we are battle tested, and because we are still frustrated with our, how well and how poorly we've played at times, Coach Smart has taken us through this season, the strongest schedule ever. And we're 10-2 playing for the SEC championship, making the college football playoffs. Wow. How awesome is that as a Georgia Bulldog fan? Yep. So my score feeling because of that is that I think it's going to be a tight ball game. I agree with you guys. I think it's going to be something that we are going to be back and forth. And I'm going to say that we're going to look at something very similar to what we did with Alabama last year, where we come out in a 3-point advantage on the other side. And I'm going to say UGA 27, Texas 24.
It does sound like an Alabama-Georgia score.
It does.
I guess I would be closer to Coach in my prediction. I think that, but to his point, I was telling you guys this in the pre-show. when we watched the Tech game, and as much frustration as there was early in that game, most of the game, to be honest, about the second overtime, it was about the time, I'm trying to remember when it was that Carson hit Lovett.
He hit Lovett.
Lovett, yeah. The Carson to Lovett, with that pass, Cash Jones pass as well. But at that point, I no longer had I had zero angst about that game. There is no way this team loses this game. Just none. And you can say, oh, it was so close. Well, you just knew Georgia was going to do exactly what it took to get it done. That type of confidence with it all on the line, with a season on the line. There's a committee aching to kick Georgia out of this whole thing.
Oh, wow.
So much was on the line right there in that moment. Calm, cool, and with complete confidence executed when they needed to. So I look this to be a game that Georgia, and they go in close at halftime, maybe 7-7, maybe something like that. And then Georgia starts to pull away, is up 2 or 3 scores, gives up a late score. I've got Georgia 28-17 on a late touchdown by Texas, 28-10 going into the fourth quarter. Go ahead and call it.
That would be a much of Smooch's rooting for that stress-free game in the second half.
I need one, man.
You can see it. I mean, Georgia was up 23-0. We knew at that point, we felt like the first time around it, 23 points, you're not. This is not a recipe for success against Georgia the way the first half was going, and it wasn't. I will say this, that if there's a lot of red zone opportunities, Georgia got to practice a lot of their red zone plays against Tech.
That's a good point. That's
anything inside the 10-yard line, 5-yard line, boy, they got a lot of good, intense work against. Got to feel really good about some of those plays.
I'll tell you a little food for thought, too, because when I was up in the box, I'd have my play call sheet, and my 2-point conversion pod was 5 plays. So after 5 plays, I was in trouble. And then by the time you got to those plays, you're thinking, well, 3 of those 5 I really don't like now because we've played 4, hours of football. And I'm thinking, I don't really like that. So let's go third and short here. Let's find some here. So yeah, it's really tough. But I agree with you. I think we all want to have that stress-free ball game. It would be nice. It would be nice to see similar to what we had back when we played LSU that year in the SEC championship. But I think that's the difference of college football. To me, what we're seeing now because of the transfer portal, and we're seeing more teams being, I think, evenly stretched out because you've got better players on all the teams out there. And that's why we're seeing these teams this year with, if we had a 4-man championship or a 4-man bracket again this year, I truly think this would have been the first year we would have seen a 2-loss team in the 4-man bracket.
Right.
I think that would have been the first time we'd ever seen that. But, still with a 12-man team, it's anybody's chances. And Georgia's got one of the best chances of any because we're in there. We've been there. We've got the DNA, the blueprint for it. And it's good to see us having the opportunity and just tell the committee, you can go over there and sit in the corner. Just stay out of the mud hole, Haji. We'll come back and get you here in just a few minutes. And we'll take care of Texas, and we'll go from there. But you're right, though. I agree. I'd rather much see us win that SEC championship. Have it. We're there. Why not? Well, I would not understand the rebuttal of why people would say, well, if we do lose, we're going to possibly be still hosting a Big Ten team in our that arena. That would be great. But I think I'd have a little more sour taste in my mouth. I'd really rather see us be the SEC champs and have that bye week, heal up, and get ready for just pure pandemonium as we start the playoff brackets.
Come on.
Mm-hmm. So excited. The season has gone by in a flash. It seemed like we were just about a month away from the season started and just salivating over some football. And here we are now. Postseason starts this week, and we cannot wait. And Georgia plays at 4:00, of course. A couple games later on that night we'll be watching as well. Hopefully Georgia can win, and then we can just enjoy the rest of the way and not have to wait on pins and needles to see how the committee makes what decisions they make. But all right, let's close this out, folks. We do appreciate you. Appreciate Coach Hayes Huddle for joining us. He's been a regular guest all year long. We do appreciate everything you do. Your content is sensational. It's one of my first go-tos after a Dawgs game. And
we listened to it 2 or 3 times up in the mountains this week.
We did. I told Smooch, just go ahead and get the camera. And while we're sitting by the fire.
We were going to film ourselves listening to you. Yeah.
We were, because we were eating dinner. one night by the fire, listening to you break down the offense and the defense, really. So
absolutely,
it's good stuff, and it's always a pleasure to be with you guys. Like I said, I still sit there and think back to when you invited me on for the very first time. I started this whole journey in January, and here we are, December. I'm just about to eclipse 2,000 subscribers, and still going strong. And just enjoy being a part and talking shop and enjoying the banter with Dog fans and the love that we have for this game of college football. It's such a great game.
Absolutely. Love it.
100%. All right. For Coach Hayes and Smooch Moncrief, this is Troop Brinson and another edition of the Dawgs Show, Countdown to Kickoff.
Countdown to Kickoff, baby.